Thanks for taking some time this morning to join us here. And on behalf of the Cuyuna Lakes Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters, again, we welcome you. If everybody could turn their cell phones off, that would be great. Mute them, please. We want to thank the candidates, too, for taking some time this morning. They are seated up here in alphabetical order. Doug Houge closest to me, Tom Nixon in the middle, and Michael Starry on the far end. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning. We also want to thank Mick's company at Kava House and SuperOne this morning for providing some donuts and coffee. Help yourselves, it's out in the hall. Welcome to it. None of the candidates' forum sponsors are endorsed by any parties or sponsor any of these candidates this morning. Just briefly, we'll go through how this is going to work. Before I do that, I'll introduce myself. I'm Tom Martin from R&J Broadcasting. Of course, we are home to Ranger Sports here in the area. Begin with the 3-minute opening statements for each candidate. They've drawn numbers, and we'll start with 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to kind of rotate. Different candidates will have an opportunity to start each question. Opening questions will be, or opening statements will be 3 minutes, and then 1.5 minutes for our prepared questions. And if we have further time, I think everybody's got maybe a pen and a piece of paper that if they want to write down a question. Audience will get to those towards the end. Again, the candidates are sitting in alphabetical order. We do have a timekeeper down here, Tracy, and she'll be holding up some cards. You guys, I'll have to cut you off if you go too far. We've got a little bit of a time limit here, so if you could stay in that time frame, that would be great. Again, note cards are available if you want to write down some questions out there. Hold them up in the air, and one of our screeners here will come and get them for you from you. With that said, I believe we're ready to start. Am I right? Okay. We'll start with Doug. He drew number 1, and Doug, you got 3 minutes for an opening statement. Take it away.
All right, thanks, Tom. I'll start off by first thanking the League of Women Voters as well as the Crosby Chamber for hosting this event today. Again, my name is Doug Houge. I am running for the re-election for District 5 County Commissioner. I've had the privilege and honor to hold this position for the past 13 years. With some of the current challenges that Crow Wing County is facing, having experience at this time, I believe, is important to carry Crow Wing County through these challenging times, current and yet to come. As the only county in the state of Minnesota that has been able to hold a zero levy for 8 consecutive years, I think this experience is going to be important to get us through the next several years to come. That, as well as preparing upcoming budgets as well. So, this being done while still reducing. From 2007, the county, Crow Wing County, held a $56 million debt. Taking that debt to zero in 2020 was quite an accomplishment, and again a combined effort from all of our members. So we're pretty proud of that as well. I've also been a great supporter of the new local sales tax option, which is a 0.5% sales tax that is money that goes just for road constructions in our county. That's generating between $5 and $6 million a year. Half of that money coming from our visitors to our areas, our communities. 290 miles, almost 300 miles of roads, new roads have been constructed with that money in the past couple years here. Over 100 of that, specifically in District 5. So a third of those dollars have gone straight to District 5. Along with that 225 miles of resurfacing and just maintaining the road systems we have. Again, our board has implemented a pay-for-performance program, which is saved the county taxpayers over $4 million a year in wages We got away from the automatic step increase and cost of living adjustments and went to a pay for performance, just like private sector, you get paid for how you do your work. So that again is saved county taxpayers $4 million. Couple of major restructurings in our departments. Land services took 5 departments combined to 1, allowing us to do a lot more with less. Likewise, in the community services, we did a major restructuring. Current customer surveys have a 90% satisfactory rate for that. Again, these are just a couple.
Sorry, Doug, I got to cut you off.
Yep.
Opening statement from candidate number 2, Tom Nixon, 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. This being put on today by the League of Women Voters, Brainerd Lakes Chamber, RJ Broadcasting, mixed company, SuperOne, and most of all, you folks here too, who are invested in learning more about your candidate and maybe going to take something away from this that you have a better understanding about at least these topics today. Thank you. My wife and family and community supporters, I appreciate that very much, and yet I hope to gain more through meeting some of you and answering some of your questions. If we look at Crow Wing County, we have a population of roughly 65,000 residents in about 1,200 square miles. So when we think of our job to take care of our residents, that's something that has to be taken seriously and has to be looked at from maybe a creative angle from time to time. And much as Doug has referenced, we may have some challenges coming in front of us here. And what we need here is some people that are equipped to challenge the norm and to come up with some new ideas and to continue to use those things that have been proven to work well. Up here you have 3 guys who are equally interested in the same post, and yet we don't do anything alone. When you get to a board, or as my council or school board experience goes, you don't have an opportunity to do something by yourself. You have to work with your board peers. You have to come up with solutions to problems that have differing viewpoints, and you're going to challenge each other to come up with that solution. I'm ready for that. That is something that I do regularly. It's something that my career has taken me to do frequently, is bring people together, break down silos, and come up with great solutions. So these new approaches that may be needed may take a new eye, and I am ready to offer that. I look at our current budget. It's mentioned that there's been a held zero budget for many years. In addition to that, there's also deficit spending to balance that as of recent, and that's been a tenet of what we're trying to get done here in the county, and getting rid of debt. But we're also going to have to look at how do we manage going forward and maintaining a fund balance. There's a policy that guides that. As we look at those bonds expiring and what we're going to do next, that restructuring and reallocation of resources has made efficiencies become more clear. Sometimes what we're missing is where our deficiencies are continuing to grow and we don't have the lens quite in focus there. So what we should do is continue to partner, take a look at what's been successful, and leverage those to the best opportunity we have.
Thank you, Tom. All right, candidate number 3, Michael Starry, you got 3 minutes for your opening statement. Go ahead.
Fancy noises I'm hearing over there. I'm Michael Starry. Thank you to the Chamber and to the League of Women Voters, of course, RJ Broadcasting as well. Unlike the other 2 gentlemen up on the stage today, I'm a first-time political guy. I've never done this before. I've never run for office. I don't have a lot of fancy political speak. I don't have a lot of experience with how the budget system in the county works and all the cool ways that we do those things, which also provides me a unique outlook on things. I spent 10 years of my life being homeless, and I've had to overcome all of that. I have learned to adapt and overcome, budget, monitor, and then raise 6 kids on top of it. Only 2 of which are my biological children. The rest of them were adopted and stepchildren. So I brought myself up from a whole world of nothing to a position of relative comfort and decency, and now that's provided me the opportunity to run a local office and try to bring the knowledge that I gained from real world experience, from fighting what every other person in this county does every day, figuring out how to make ends meet while raising a family. And I look at things a little differently. So I'm not going to come at it from a political thing. I don't have that background. I applaud their background. I think it's great. It's why I'm doing it. But I'm not going to bring the same experience. I'm going to bring an outside eye to this. So don't expect throughout this thing me to know the right things to say, because I don't. I don't know the right way to word things. I don't know the right thing to say. I don't know exactly all the terminology and how the budgets all work and how this works and how that works. But I'm going to give you real world outlooks, real world opinions, and real world solutions that have proven time and time again to work for me.
I'll get an equal chance, but starting with different candidates with these questions. So have you guys had a chance to look over the questions? Okay, you guys don't know. All right.
It's a surprise.
Good. All right. We'll start with question 1, and this one's going to start with Mr. Starry. Okay. Question number 1: if you received a $1 million grant to use for Crow Wing County, any way you wanted to use it, what would you do with it and why? Want me to repeat that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Just a straight $1 million grant with no strings attached would have to go in my opinion, would have to go into a rainy day fund. Just because we have money doesn't mean we need to spend money. So stash it away, let it sit, and work on reducing the budget. And then if needed, that $1 million can be used for an emergency service, an infrastructure service, whatever the case may be. But there's no reason to spend it just because we got it. So I would put it in some sort of savings into the county coffers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, you guys have a minute and a half for these questions. All right, we're going to go to Mr. Nixon next in the middle. Same question. You want me to repeat that?
Just to be certain, please do.
If you received a $1 million grant to use for Crow Wing County any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
One of the things that I believe we could do a better job, at least from the citizen side of the county, is having a better understanding of where we're efficient and where we're deficient. And looking at the budget for 2020, I think one of the strongest places we could invest that $1 million is a place that we're going to find a better return on our investment. There are places where our debt management has done wondrous things. It's been restructured so that we've been able to pay things off earlier and with lesser interest. So I think the first place that would go is one of the locations that has long-term downstream savings. In this moment, in particular, I don't have one individual pick for that. But when you look at saving or paying something off early so that you have more revenue flow, that would be the approach I would take.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to Mr. Houge. Same question, 90 seconds. You want me to repeat it?
No.
Okay.
Well, first thing we would do was, of course, similar to actions just this past week, where we did receive some federal grant money, is hold some special meetings and discuss it as a board and figure out again the best use of them dollars. There could be multiple areas that we could use that money. We do have some fund balances that are in need of rebuilding. Likely that would be my suggestion as rather than just spending the money because we have it. But I think it's important to meet as a board and discuss the options that present themselves and then make a decision that way.
Okay, thank you. Going to question number 2. And this round of questioning will start with Mr. Nixon in the middle. How do you balance recreation, water quality, habitat, and tourism?
Glad to go first on this one. How do you balance those interests? It's minimization I think is what your impacts need to be at that point. When you look at taxpayer responsibility, we've paid for the use of our own property, we've paid for the use of public lands. And what we can try to strike the balance of is that recreational use of places that maybe are going to have minimal impact. So discussions recently about parcels that may have great restrictions on them become very challenging because there's not a clear, easy answer for us to pick which side someone's going to want to be on. And for me, I think we need to respect nature's beauty, but if we look at our impacts to that land, if we're able to recreate on it and not negatively impact it for a long term, and use our enforcement that we have to challenge those that do not follow our recommendations to use those properties, then I believe we have full use of that land.
Thank you. Mr. Houge, you are up next. Do you need me to repeat that? How do you balance recreation, water quality, habitat, and tourism?
Okay, well, Cronin County is one of the top destination counties in the state of Minnesota. And we go from $65,000 our population to about 180 and so on. So it's important to have procedures and policies in place to review any of these opportunities that come before us. Both motorized, site sports, whatever they may be, we need to make sure that it doesn't impact the environment in our lakes and streams negatively. These policies, every one of these applications that come before the board are reviewed and make sure that the impacts are positive and they're important to us. We need to continue to grow our recreational opportunities. As recently as just this week, I'm introducing a shooting range in our area for area youth. Again, that goes through a very strict and timely process to make sure that it's done correctly. But one thing we cannot do is do anything that's going to damage our environment and our quality of our lakes and streams.
Thank you. All right, question number 2 from Mr. Starry. How do you balance recreation, water quality, habitat, and tourism?
Well, I think we've done a fairly good job. One thing that we need to remember is that after the mines closed and when Scorpion went down, most of our employment left and we became a recreation destination. So the number one reason people are coming here is because it's not the city, it's not even Brainerd. So we need to get back to a little, in my opinion anyway, I think we need to have a little bit more of a clean water system where we have a lot less motorized traffic on some of the lakes. But we also need to push that mentality. The reason everybody comes here is because it's pristine and it's beautiful and the waters are clean. So we invite you to come here and enjoy that aspect of it, not motor around. So that's the first thing. You've attracted your tourism, you've attracted your clientele to come here for the clean, and you've made the emphasis on them to maintain the clean natural beauty of the area. Secondly, like the bike park has been fantastic. That's been really improved by the entire state for that matter. I mean, it's brought in a ton of people and it has awoken a lot of people to the idea of the beauty of nature and how to generate tourist dollars and use the resources we have in place already naturally or unnaturally, as the case of the mines may have been. So I think continuing the path we are and maintaining that push for just the clean, non-motorized waterways is a good way to balance that right now.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody that we are streaming live on the Chamber Facebook page today. We're on several of our R&J broadcasting radio stations and via Zoom. These 3 candidates will be on the primary election ballot coming up on August 11th. Thank you. All right, so we are going to go to question number 3, gentlemen. This time we start with Mr. Starry. What would you do to promote affordable housing?
What would I do to promote affordable housing?
Correct.
I don't know that it needs much promotion. We suffer a severe lack of affordable housing. One of the things that I've seen is we have some tax forfeited lands that have come up, and there've been some development opportunities. Some people have presented ideas, and then they say, well, it's for affordable housing, and they go, you know, between the 160s and the 180s. That's fantastically affordable for somebody that makes 250 or 300. I think we need to get back to remembering what affordable is. Our median income versus the median income in other places is substantially lower, partly because we don't have a lot of industry. We are tourism-based, we're service-based. So we need to remind ourselves how hard it is day to day for us to make a living. Some of us do real well, and it's still a struggle. So we have to check that balance back to what's really affordable for our residents, and then work from there up. Because if we're going to accept $180,000 homes as affordable housing, then a whole lot of us have to get better jobs. I think that's the first thing, is pushing down those price limits on what we determine as affordable housing.
Thank you. Same question. This one's going to Mr. Nixon. What would you do to promote affordable housing?
This approach for me would be very similar to promoting economic development. This last year's budget report reflects the discussion with HRA, and I read into that. There are some opportunities to encourage businesses to be partners in development and to be more creative in our ways that we're able to support new business, offset their startup costs, and maybe help generate their employee base. Tax increment financing and other programs that are out there can help supplement. From a county level, if we have, for instance, that previous discussion about $1 million, that may be some of those instances where if we look at efficiencies and we look at where our investments go, we may be finding that our workforce shortage is because we don't have housing. This is actually something that I know we talk about at the school board quite frequently. So to find that balance between the two, sometimes that investment, as much as I'd like to be considered a fiscal conservative, if we look downstream, if we invest wisely there, we may find that we have more business growth, more residents here contributing to the tax base, more residents purchasing and involved in the economy, and at that point, the investment becomes a return.
Thank you. Same question, question number 3 to Mr. Houge. How do you promote affordable housing?
Okay. Well, the first step in that is identifying the need, and unfortunately, you know, we've had these discussions, and that is something we just don't quite know what that need is. That said, we have partnered up with HRA and others with a current study that's going on as we speak to one, identify those needs. Until we know those needs, it's hard to figure out, you know, the next step, I guess, is going to be how we implement those needs. But until that study's done, and that's a county-wide study, I think we're going to need that information to figure out how to move forward with affordable housing.
Thank you. I do want to remind the audience of these questions. We do have prepared questions that were put together with the League of Women Voters and the Chamber. The audience does have an opportunity to write down a question and hold it up in the air, and one of our screeners will come and get it. We'll get to those at the end if you have any. Okay, we are going to question number 4, and this time we start with Mr. Houge. Do you plan to promote any changes to existing taxes, and if so, why?
Can you repeat that?
Yes. Do you plan to promote any changes to existing taxes, and if so, why?
I have no plans to promote any new taxes. You know, our budget process cycle, you know, is nearly a year in the works. What we go into that process with is first identifying the needs, but we don't go in there with the thinking that we're going to just add taxes. People are stretched today. We'll look at these proposals from our senior managers, and examine those, look at those, pick them apart, figure out what we can get by without, what we can't, and come up with a proper tax levy that's reasonable, responsible, and the best use of taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Question number 4, Mr. Starry. Do you plan to promote any changes to existing taxes? If so, why?
Yes, if there's any opportunity to decrease, cut, or remove an existing tax, I plan to actively pursue that goal. I'd rather not maintain, and I certainly don't want anything to increase. I would like to cut that. And why? Because taxation is theft. It's stealing your money and then telling you it's being used for your benefit. Your money's better served in your wallet with you making your decisions. So yeah, if there's an opportunity to cut taxation in any way, shape, or form, or to maintain it at a 0 level or at the current levels, I'm absolutely going to work towards that end. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nixon, same question. Do you plan to promote any changes to existing taxes? If so, why?
If we were to reflect on the past levies and what has been taken from the properties that we've collected taxes on, there was a string of years, I think 10 is what was mentioned, for a 0 take. We had changed our balance so that we were not increasing our levy. Unfortunately, we had to play catch up then. Now there's 2 years in a row where there's been a 7%-ish increase. I think when we look at how those situations occur, we need to be clear on our level of service of the expectations of the citizenry. If we expect to have our roads maintained the same way, have our same number of departments staffed the same way, if we're seeing an efficiency is at its highest, and citizens want that to continue, it's going to be difficult to decrease that tax burden because that's what's been maintained. Unfortunately, if we're going to be heading into a shortfall here, we're going to need to determine, again, that return on investment. Where are we best investing? What things are going to be allowing us to continue the level of service we have and not sacrifice something? For instance, road maintenance could be an example. If we were to start cutting plow routes, we're actually going to increase costs by having to go back and sand and salt afterwards. So just an example.
Thank you. I do want to thank you guys for staying in the time limit too. Thank you very much. All right, we are going to question number 5. This time we will start right back with you, Mr. Nixon. Should any part of the county budget be shielded from cuts? And if so, which area? Should any part of the county budget be shielded from cuts? And if so, which area?
I think the best answer, how we determine that, I believe that the county needs to develop a comprehensive strategic plan. In looking in the current budget, there are a lot of statements that are made and goals, but when we're working with difficult times and you try to figure out what area needs to be saved, there are statements and places that kind of reference this throughout different documents within the county, but with having a vision of what is, I guess, most sacred or what things we find as highest priority, for instance, in community services, is more of a preventative, and also prevention is worth, its weight in gold. If we're able to prevent some of these mental health issues becoming criminal issues and downstream abuse issues and so forth, maybe that is how we would make that determination. Currently, I don't have one place that needs to be sheltered more than another, but the protection and safety of our citizenry is something we need to take very seriously. I'll yield with that.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. Houge. Should any part of the county budget be shielded from cuts, and if so, which area?
Well, the quick answer is no. every department presents a budget, and it is reviewed by the county board. At that time, we'll determine if something needs to be moved out or if they can go without something. But no department should be protected. Every department has unique challenges that are put in front of them each year, whether they be mandates through the federal government, state government. You can't predict those. We never know when they're coming. Likewise, majority of those mandates are unfunded. So we have to go into budgets with an open mind, listen and learn what the needs are, and prepare a budget based on that information. But there should be no budget or no department that's protected from any type of cuts or sense.
Thank you. Mr. Starry, same question. Should any part of the county budget be shielded from cuts? And if so, which area?
It's possible you won't hear this from me for too often, but I agree 100% with Commissioner Hope. There's no department, no part of the budget should ever be given granted permissions to stay where it is. You should be allowed and willing to make cuts where cuts are needed. They're always going to change. Needs of the county change hourly. So what you thought should have been protected this morning may not need to be protected this afternoon because we might get a COVID pandemic and suddenly everything changes. So no, there's nothing that should be shielded from the funding or in the budgets at all.
Thank you. I'm going to go to question number 6 on here. I think this is an interesting question anyways, and maybe help our listeners and our audience to get to know each of you guys a little bit better. So we are going to start with Mr. Starry. Here's the question. What neighborhood do you live in? Why? And where are your favorite places to spend time in our town or our area?
I don't really live in a neighborhood. I live on in Irondale Township on a small country road with 5 houses on it. I live there because I like living away from other people. I like living out in the country, and I'm only a mile from the dairy farm that I spent most of my weekends, my youth on. As for where I spend or like spending my time in our county, any frozen lake all winter long. I'm an avid ice fisherman, so if I'm not home, I'm usually sitting in the middle of a lake on a bucket, wondering why I'm sitting in the middle of a lake on a bucket. Otherwise, it's Emily, my father's side of the family, and our homestead is up there, so that's where I spend most of my time, is outdoors in the woods around it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We go to the middle, Mr. Nixon. I'll repeat that question for you. What neighborhood do you live in? Why? Where are your favorite places to spend time in our town or our area?
Okay, well, I come from the village of Deerwood. I live just in Deerwood Township. I actually bought my grandparents' homestead after they moved here from the farm. That was where I grew up as a kid, running around on the acres out there and playing, building forts and so forth. I have 7 children of my wife's and my own that do the same. They have now enjoyed that same property. I live there not only because of the sentimental value, but because I've traveled all over the state. My work brings me to many counties across the state. This is home, but it's also the place to be. And the reason I stay in this area, I joined the fire department when I was quite young. And at that time, there was a residency requirement to be within a mile of the fire department. 2 meetings later, they changed that requirement, and I could have lived a lot further away. But I'm glad where I've lived. We frequent the school with my kids. We spend a lot of time here, but we go out and enjoy the lakes. We go out on the boat. We go out on the trails and walk and hike. We duck hunt, we deer hunt. We enjoy the outdoors quite frequently, but this is home.
Thank you. Question number 6 to Mr. Hope. What neighborhood do you live in? Why? Where are your favorite places to spend time in our town or our area?
Well, currently I reside on a lake, Blackfoot Lake, just 2 miles outside of Ironton. I've been in residency there for the past 3 years. My favorite place is, unfortunately, between the county commissioner's responsibilities and the current business that I own, I don't have a lot of spare time to enjoy all the wonderful places that Crow Wing County has to offer. With that said, when I do have an opportunity to break loose and just get away and sit and relax, I make several trips out to the Northern Line, and nobody has been out there. It is one of the best designed parks in the county, probably in the state, and it's just relaxing. It's a great memorial to the 41 miners that lost their lives, and it's just a peaceful place to sit and relax and take in the scenery. And hopefully, with the pending sale of my business, I want to get out and see all four corners of the county and just spend time in some of the fine establishments and places to eat and entertainment. So I'm looking forward to that, hopefully in the future.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to go to some of our audience questions, and like to just let the audience know that if questions were similar, we've kind of grouped them into one question and hopefully make it a little clearer for the candidates to answer these. So we will start with Mr. Houge. Do you feel it is important for candidates to attend committee meetings regularly?
Absolutely it is. I will, as I mentioned in the previous question, I do have a business to run as well. Attending meetings in person is good. I do want to remind the people though that all of these committee meetings are also offered online, and a person can read all the events that are on all the agenda items that are on that event, and I often do that when I do have time in the evenings, as well follow up with staff members as far as if there's any questions or any more information needed. But attending in person is always the best opportunity. But in some cases, personal items present a challenge there.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. Starry. Do you feel it is important for candidates to attend committee meetings regularly?
Absolutely. The vast majority of the information on what the regular bi-weekly meeting is going to entail takes place in committee meetings. Whether it's distributions of funds or allocations of resources, or how are we going to deal with out-of-home placements. Committee meetings belong to those because that's where you are representing the voice of your constituents every day, and you're hearing about the true nature, not just the yes or no votes. Yeah, it's of the utmost importance to attend every committee meeting, minus medical emergency or oh God moments. Yeah.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. Nixon. Do you feel it's important for candidates to attend committee meetings?
As members of several boards and committees and councils over the past, I have missed one committee meeting for a fire call, and I missed a couple for 2 birthdays over the years. Committee meetings are where the work takes place. That's where the arguments, I guess, get to be most spirited. I think when you get to the board table and you're going to make a decision, if you're on that committee, your representation to your board at that point is to be the subject matter expert on that topic. And when you arrive, you should know before you get to your committee meeting a little bit about what you're talking about. When you get to the board meeting, you should be prepared to take action. And so, in my opinion, committee work is by far of the most important place to be. Inevitably, things are going to come up and you're going to have to miss. And so, yes, you can make connections later with staff and with board peers, but it needs to be a priority. And my experience has been every time I've made one of those, I would have missed something significant had I not been in person.
Thank you. Okay. Continue on with some of our audience questions. This time we are going to start right back with you, Mr. Nixon. Okay. What is your stance on Crow Wing County's recent Second Amendment sanctuary status?
My support for the Second Amendment is not in question. I have complete and utmost support for our rights. The Second Amendment sanctuary effort, from my take on it, if the county would have acted earlier and made a statement, which is what I consider this at this time, that would have been of little consequence. If I look at the way that our state is currently structured and our current legislature as it's acted upon this, I do believe it is something we need to be concerned about. But at this point, of 87 counties, I believe, and forgive me, in fact, Mr. Starry can correct me here, I think it's about 9 counties that designated or work to make themselves considered a sanctuary county. I think that would be a strong statement to St. Paul if there was 80 of 87 counties saying that we support being a sanctuary, and mostly that it's posturing to the fact that we do not support that in greater Minnesota. Without having current legislation threatening that at the time, I think it lacked the ability to invigorate the society that's maybe quiet at the time being for us to act upon that at a county level. So I support Second Amendment, and if that was a threat from St. Paul, I think it would be a different story at the county court.
Thank you. Mr. Houge,
that I fully support the Second Amendment. The recent drive to push Crow Wing County into Sanctuary County had just too much risk to the taxpayers of Crow Wing County. We learned after, we researched this and spent some time discussing it, understanding that our legal fees would be covered by the League of Attorneys. That said, if we legal fees, just for an example of $350,000, which is not unheard of for legal fees, that adds 1% to our levy. And I think supporting the Second Amendment, absolutely, but at the risk of having to increase our levy, I'm just not willing to take that risk for the taxpayers. I'll also add, as a true supporter and believer of the Second Amendment, I have been working for over a year to develop a shooting range in the Cuyuna range in the District 5 area, and I'm going to continue to push that and show my support towards the proper use of firearms for our youth and our home.
thank you. Mr. Starry, same question. What is your stance on Crow Wing County's recent Second Amendment sanctuary status?
My first stance is that it's not sanctuary, it's a dedicated county. There's a difference. There are no buts on the Second Amendment. There's no buts on the First Amendment. There's no buts on the Third Amendment. You're either all in or you're not. That's liberty. So my stance is the county missed an opportunity for fear of potential lawsuits. My question is, what other lawsuits would we face for not allocating the resources? 90% of the county board's job is to allocate resources as they see fit and as they deem the needs of the community. Do we get sued every time we refuse to send an extra $50 over here or not send $50 over there? Not usually. So our fear of a lawsuit was based on, we're not going to allocate money or resources for the enforcement of a law. And we're worried that we're going to get sued for that. Then this should be every budget meeting. This should be every board meeting. We're going to get sued because we didn't want to spend money over here. It's a ridiculous position to take, quite frankly. So the truth of the matter is I support the Second Amendment dedicated county 100%. I've spent my lifetime advocating for the Second Amendment as well as the entire Bill of Rights. The reality is you're either all in or you're not. That's what liberty is. You stand and die, or you fall on your knees and die. I'm going to stand and fight. Simple as that.
Thank you. Again, we thank the audience for participating here with some questions. We have another one from the audience. We will start with you, Mr. Starry. Do you feel there is anything we can do as a county to reduce veteran suicides?
Yeah, I really do. One of the things that my wife and I have taken to doing is anytime we're at a store of any sort, and there's an old man at the counter or an old man behind you, an old lady behind you, and they strike up a conversation, speak to them. Take your time. Listen to everything they say, because the reality is veterans are lonely. A lot of these people that have seen some really ungodly things, man, they're lonely, they're scared, they're frightened. They might even be surrounded by other people, but you know what? It's darn hard sometimes to open up to the people that are closest to you. So one of the things the county can do is continue to make that push, reminding each other that we're human. That there are people out there that have done a whole lot more to defend our liberty and our rights than we'll ever dream of doing not serving. But we have to honor that. So I think as a county, we need to make that constant push. Remember that. Speak to them. Take a minute of your day to remember that they're human. We're so busy all the time. We're always running around. We've got so much to do. Take a moment. When you see that guy that might be a veteran and he just kind of seems out, make sure you smile at him. Make sure you talk to him and take that moment. So I think the county needs to make a push for that, reminding everybody, be kind. You know, you see these guys, just be kind and give them an ear. I think that would go longer than anything else that we can do.
Thank you. To Mr. Nixon, same question. You feel there's anything we can do as a county to reduce veteran suicides?
I wish I had the answer. I think we have some great people in our veterans office in the county. I've talked with them specifically about this issue. For many years, I responded on the ambulance to instances. I left off the ambulance in 2017. In those years of going to suicides or attempts or suicidal, visiting with those folks who are at the darkest hour is too late. We should have been able to find a way to help them sooner. I think one of the issues that maybe we need to continue to address, and it's one of the things I brought up in my campaign, is mental health. And how do we support that as a county? And I don't have the specific answers, but talking to people in the community services area, talk to your law enforcement community, talk to your EMS folks, anybody knows that mental health is an issue that we are not dealing with. And the issue with it is we call mental health as if it's a problem, as if it's something we should hide from. We need to address it head on. We need to come up with some resources, because downstream there's other problems that come following in. I don't have an answer for how, but I need to ask the people that know, and we need to implement those things.
Thank you. Mr. Houge, same question.
Well, you know, over the past year, there's been a major push from our community services area to address the mental illness issues in our county, in our state, in our country. That said, with the combined work, our new veteran service officer has been very aggressive in applying for grants and looking for opportunities to serve our veterans in a better way. The two departments have come up with some very good programs and opportunities to help our veterans. That said, you know, some of these programs, some of these opportunities come at a cost. And again, as we discuss budgets and possible zero budgets and stuff, we have to keep these type of programs and opportunities in mind. Again, some can be offset with grants, but sometimes it just takes additional funding to support this. And I think that is an area that's very worthy of some extra dollars being spent on. So I do an event every year, which is probably the highlight of my year at my part, where I serve free meals to all veterans in Crosby County. It's probably the funnest day I have at my store, and I've done this for the past 6 years. And to just sit down and talk to veterans and spend some time with them, it means the world to them. So we can't forget them. We need to take care of them.
Thank you. Closing statements, or should I? Couple more questions. I got a couple more here that I think are pretty important, and kind of following up on the veteran suicides, we'll go back to the beginning of the rotation here and start with you, Mr. Houge. What are your plans for addressing the mental health care needs in the county? It kind of a follow-up to the veteran suicides.
Well, my plans again, and they have been, is to continue to support our leaders in community services. You know, they are the people that have the education, the background, the knowledge of what's needed. And if we neglect to support their needs, we'll make no progress in heading off the mental illness challenges that we have. And these are going to continue to grow, multiply. So we've taken an aggressive approach at that. And again, we have in the last year have seen some rewards for the programs that they've implemented already. This is a multi-year ongoing process that's going to take a lot of work and effort for these people, but we have staff that are committed to making this work, and I believe that with the support of a good board that we can make a difference.
Thank you. Go to Mr. Nixon. What are your plans for addressing the mental health care needs in the county?
Department of Human Services didn't serve us very well when state hospitals were taken away, I guess. You know, 2 years ago, the Sourcewell was able to grant Crow County a grant able to assist with diverting patients to healthcare as opposed to incarceration, because their issues were more related to their mental health and needs there instead of needing to be jailed. Recently, we had an incident where we had somebody that had been in contact with law enforcement more than 30 times in less than 24 hours. We're using our system inefficiently. What we need to do is come up with a solution to back fund or continue to fund the grant program and expand that. Where we're investing on the back end of a problem, we should be investing on the prevention side.
Thank you. Mr. Starry, same question. What are your plans for addressing the mental health care needs in the county?
Thank you. I think both Commissioner Houge and Mr. Nixon are spot on in their assessment, but I think the one thing that's missing goes back to the same thing with the veterans is humanizing. Man, we've forgotten that people are human. We treat everything like it's subhuman, it's different than us. You know what? There's nobody in this room that hasn't had a rough day. Some of us have had rough years, some of us have had rough decades. Mental health is an issue that affects all of us. We need to remember that the way that we address things. So yeah, financing and funding is good, grants are good. Working on the front end or the back end is fantastic, but remember that they're human and you have to treat it in a human approach, not a clinical approach, not a financial approach. I think re-educating ourselves, the members of the community, the board, social services staff and everything, remember that we're just people. And everybody's going through some heavy stuff. So, and reminding everybody else that this is a human issue. This isn't a mental issue. This is a human crisis. I think if we start to rehumanize and actually look at each other and care about each other, the solutions are going to present a little bit of themselves. We're going to start seeing better results. I know some of our staff are way overworked. We're getting hit with a lot of these things, and it's hard to maintain humanity sometimes, but I think that needs to be the biggest key along with maintaining the funding.
Thank you. Do we have time for one more? Closing statements, okay. Okay, at this time, we're going to go to the closing statements, and you each have 2 minutes in the closing statement. And we are going to start with Mr. Houge.
Okay, thanks. I'll start off by thanking everybody that came to attend today in person, as well as those that are watching us out there. We all know that growing counties not unique and facing many challenges throughout this country. A year ago, we never would have dreamt we'd be dealing with some of the issues that we are today. Some of those issues we're probably not even aware of yet. This pandemic is going to carry on for a number of years. That said, I'm a commissioner with the experience that can address these. We can go to the sources we need and hit these challenges head on. I'm a commissioner also that's going to listen and treat people fairly. A commissioner that's going to continue to protect our waters and streams. A commissioner that's supporting all of our recreational opportunities that bring the people to our area. All of this is important without losing focus of these challenges that we need. Again, we have produced some amazing accomplishments in the past 13 years. I want to continue to do that. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve these 13 years, and I'm looking forward to using this experience and knowledge to continue to serve another 4 years. So I appreciate your support and your vote on August 11th.
Okay, thank you. We'll jump down to Mr. Starry. 2 minutes closing statement, please.
Closing statements. I'm not uniquely qualified for this position. I'm not uniquely qualified to serve on the county board. There are no unique qualifications for that position. Qualifications are to be a citizen, a resident, and to be of legal voting age. That's essentially it. As you've seen today, I don't approach things the same way. I don't see things the same way. I live in a different little realm because of the way that I brought myself up. So we can have decades of experience on the board running politics as usual, or you can have years of experience working on different councils and committees and boards, or you can have somebody that spent their entire life just working to find solutions in the real world every day. I'm not going to hit it from a political realm. I'm going to hit it from a human realm. That's my solution to everything, is how do we handle this like humans? How do we maintain dignity, and how do we support liberty throughout all of that? Err on the side of freedom is the only mantra that I live by. So my closing statement is, if you want somebody new, something different, a change, and somebody that's going to maintain humanity the whole time, give me a look. If not, the other guys are available on the ballot too.
Thank you. And we'll finish with Mr. Nixon. 2 minutes closing statement.
All right. I'm going to thank the fellows I'm sitting up here with. We were all kind to each other today. I thank you for that.
Just this once, though.
Okay, good enough. Don't forget, voters, if August 11th is going to sneak up on you, depending upon where your precinct is at, you may need to confirm that you're registered. If you ever received your mail-in ballot and your precinct is a mail-in ballot only, you need to be registered. Check with the county elections office. You can vote at the county in person, or you can request an absentee ballot, but be aware there are timelines for how that gets completed. If you need help with that, there are a lot of people to ask. Any of us, I'm sure, would be happy to assist you with that. Anything that we've talked about here today is just a narrow scope of what all of the issues could be. And you're seeing our advertisement. This is us having the ability to tell you what we want you to hear. In real conversation, sometimes we can flesh out some of those other details that maybe we're going to differ a little bit on. I welcome those moments. I'm an educator, and I'm also willing to be educated. I will not stand on a moment to stick with something just because it's what I've always known it to be. Sometimes new information comes along. Our direction, what we need to do for our county is to lead into bringing people on board that have new ideas, that have opportunities to leverage other experience, that have opportunities to use relationships that they have. Who are we when we're not in front of the stage? Have that conversation, find out who we are. I think you're going to get to know us as good people, but we all approach life differently. I want to thank you all for your attention, and I hope for that your vote. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank all you guys very much for participating this morning, taking the time. I think you guys all did a wonderful job. Thanks again. This is Doug Houge on this side, Tom Nixon in the middle, Michael Starry on the end. Thank the audience for coming today and everybody that's tuned in. I want to thank Brielle and Courtney from the Pine Lakes Chamber of Commerce and Becky and Tracy from the League of Women Voters for being here today. And everybody listening on the radio, online, however you're doing it, get out and vote. Please do that. I'm Tom Martin. I appreciate the opportunity to moderate this today. And again, thank you, gentlemen. It was wonderful. Really good job, guys. Thanks.